Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday Tips to Unleash Your Amazing. Today, I am super excited to share my guest, Dominick Domasky, with Motivation Champs. Dominick, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here. So Dominick is a publisher and a motivator. And if you aren't already following him, make sure that you check him out. He has a group and a lot of really inspirational, good content that he shares. And a big part of his purpose is to inspire and motivate others. And so you just got to love that about a person. So Dominick, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself and your journey?
Well, I'm appreciative of being on Unleash Your Amazing first. So the honor is all mine. Wherever we go, wherever I do the rest of the day, I have already made it today. So I think one of the things that just describes me is, where the journey is. I've failed 1,000 times, and I am positive I will fail 1,000 more along the journey. So whether it has been sales or being a restaurateur or writing books when I wrote myself, I've made 1,000 mistakes and I've failed 1,000 times. And now through those failures, you learn along the way. And I was fortunate enough, we started Motivation Champs, helping people share their story and share inspiration. And I've written some books. And while you're sharing your story, you start to realize other people have a story as well. And that's the roots of Motivation Champs.
Well, I think that it's really powerful because you're right. When you share your story, you provide a safe space for other people to share their story as well. And another thing that you said, how, failure provides really great lessons. I think that we really learn a lot more from failure than we do from success. I mean, we want to get to the success, obviously, but the lessons really are in kind of the tweaking of the process.
Absolutely. It's you learn and you get better each time. And each time if anything, if writing a book was easy and you wrote the first book, the greatest book ever, the first time through it, well then that's not how it works. If you go out and try to shoot baskets or play golf, if you made all your shots on the first day, then it was too easy for you. If you set your goal, anybody listening, if you set your goal so low that you wildly succeeded day one, well, maybe you better up that goal. You are capable of more.
Yes. So, Dominick, why is right now a great time to write a book?
One, because in 2020, we have been at home. We had had time to think. We also hurt. A lot of us went through a lot in 2020. So the words that you have, the words that you've been thinking, the thoughts that you had in 2020, what you overcame, those words will help somebody else. So not only from a business standpoint, more people are reading than I've ever read before. The numbers of people that bought books, there was, I think, 700 and like the 750 million books sold in the U.S. last year. I mean, the numbers are greater than they've ever been. But also, there's a need. Individuals need hope. They need your tips. They need to unleash their amazing. So it is the time to share your story.
Yeah. So if I was to write a book, do you have any ideas of what I would write about? Because I mean, sometimes when I think about writing a book, I'm like, well, I could write about this. I could write about this. And then, you overanalyze and then you don't do anything.
It's interesting because even to be a guest on your show, I went through a process, and it was unleash your amazing, and you had to think about what this amazing was that you were going to release, or talk about. So in your case, you've helped all these people unleash their amazing, and I wonder if they're unleash your amazing relationship, unleash your amazing, inner peace, inner being, I wonder if there are pillars. This is just as I watch your show and consume it. I wonder if there are pillars that all of us have, meaning like relationship, health, uh, monetary success. And I wonder if you could help me unleash each one of those things, knowing that people have these 4 or 5 common pillars in place. Could you give us the tools and resources? Maybe I'm lacking in self-confidence or lacking in the relationship category. Maybe you could help us improve that area of our life.
Yeah. Well, I do find that a lot of people do seem to struggle with, self love. I think that sometimes they think that, that it's selfish to love yourself. But, I don't mean when I talk about self love in a way that is selfish. I mean it in more of an empowering, because, you really can't give to others. You can't love other people in the way that you're meant to until you really, truly believe in loving yourself. So.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Joel Hulk, one day. He's an author, and we were talking about something I was working on. And I said I was going to help this person do this, and I was going to help this person do that. And he was like, "Well, what about you? Why haven't you done that?" And it was like giving up soda. Let's say it was I drink Diet Mountain Dew. I love Diet Mountain Dew. So, and I it was something that I hadn't given up. And he was like, "But you'll encourage this person to do this, but you haven't given up that you know is hurting you long term." And he said, "Do you not love, is the question, do you not love yourself as much as you love them?" To your point, maybe we should all and love ourselves a little more.
Yeah, I think it's really important because when we don't love ourselves, what happens is we can't really show up as the most authentic version of ourselves and really give to people in a way. It's more of a superficial way when we're giving to others, but we're not giving the same kind of love to ourselves. Like, I could inspire you, but when I'm at home beating myself up, then that's not really authentic, is it?
Right. And
Yeah.
and I think that search is similar to happiness. If you're not happy in here, it doesn't matter if you have $20 million or you're on some trip somewhere. If you're not happy inside, then it's all, you can put out this persona, but really eventually people are all going to see through it.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, what can aspiring authors learn from you?
Well, we one there is felt I felt like, why Dominick? Why can I tell you? Well, I felt like I've sent hundreds of query letters and not have them responded to, and I've also had signed publishing deals. I've helped hundreds of authors write books, and I've also written 7 myself. We have screenplays written now, and we continue to grow these concepts. So, what can they learn from me is, number one, persistence.
Mhm.
Nothing, absolutely zero, qualified me to start this process, to go out and write my first book, right? Here I was, a guy who got beat up and had butter wiped in his hair by the kids at school. I, I was not qualified to write a book, but I, like so many people, just believed they had something to say. And
Mhm.
if you have something to say, write it down and start that process. There's that voice in your head telling you you have something to say. It's correct. And now it's the beginning, the process. So what you do is you start that process, whether it's an idea. You have this idea in your head. What do you want to write about? Well, you said already, you told me you're writing about multiple things. So I would keep these folders and I would start to write about all these subjects. Then maybe there is a common theme to all of them, but you just continue to build and build and build. So that's the start of that. But we can go, I would love to go further into this conversation.
Well, yeah, let's go there. Let's talk about like how. So if somebody's starting to, they know that they want to write a book, and they're feeling inspired. What are some really good strategies to kind of help them get it out of here onto paper?
Okay. One, so there's strategies I'm going to throw out to you that aren't conventional. So I like to talk about writing books in 2020. 2021. You can do things the way they were done in 1950, and they may still work, but there's different ways to do it now. So number one, could you, let's say I'm a big believer in Twitter. Could you get on Twitter and start to share a message? Every day make a post. Well, you might say, well, I don't have anything to say. Well, if you don't have anything to say on one line on Twitter, you don't have anything to say yet, right? So maybe you start to figure out what you're passionate about. So
Mm.
when you start to figure out what you're passionate about, what do I like to talk about? Maybe it's you want to talk about politics. Maybe it's that you want to talk about writing books. Maybe it's that you want to talk about the great tips to being an accountant because you are stellar at being an accountant. All those things. Now you have, I've been on Twitter posting about being an accountant. I'm seeing that this is something I like to talk about. So you are developing these concepts. There's a lot of ways to develop them. And so you're building little by little. Now you have a basis for something you want to talk about.
Hmm. Nice, nice. Um, what is the best part of writing a book?
It's interesting because I'm a big believer in understanding your why and knowing your why. So it is cathartic to write a book and get out on paper these feelings that have been inside you. Some of the stories I write may have been a thought from 20 years ago. It may have been an idea. It may be a story about something, a trip to a Walmart in New Mexico that me and my grandfather took 35 years ago. And something planted a seed that I want to elaborate on that story. So absolutely it's cathartic. But if you know your why on why you write that book, you may say, I want to write this book to help other people unleash their amazing. My main goal is to help this woman who is hurting because her ex-husband, she was in a mentally abusive relationship, and I want to help her know that she is the best person. So understanding that you wrote that book to help that woman. I wrote this book to help this person, to share this story. If you know the why that you did it, and then later on somebody reads your book, and that person that we just spoke about comes to Tammy and says, Tammy, I didn't know I had this in me. Thank you. I didn't know I could start a business. I didn't know I could have a better life. I didn't know this. That's the best part about writing a book. The best part about it is the impact it makes. Whether it's on one person, 10,000 people, a million people, making an impact is what's best about it. And anybody listening, they have it inside of them, the ability to make an impact and help somebody else.
I love that. Goes back and it brings me to that book. Start with why.
Right. Yeah. If you know that, and I'm such a believer in it. If you know that, you are never off mission. If you know that when you want to get in shape and it's snowing outside, and why are you out there that day? Because it would be much easier not to go outside when it was snowing. It would be if to work extra if it's like if you have fitness goals and you continue to go outside, you continue to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you continue to run when it's hot out, whatever. It's because your why is so strong that it pushes you on those days. So if you have that why, start with the why. If it's so strong, and then those hard times, they're not hard, they're just bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So those bumps in the road, though, I think that one of the things that I really realized that, which is part of a journey of maybe writing a book, is really acknowledging and appreciating those hard times so that you can really transform your life around that. whenever you're going through those processes and you're doing those hard things like, running in the snow or, moving across the country away from everybody, you can really discover, deep down yourself and through all that.
I couldn't agree more. I think your mindset, your mental mindset must be calloused. It grows. And each time you're challenged, any of us, each time we're challenged, we all have a choice, like having went through 2020, we all have a choice in this past year to give up, to assume that this is never going to end, to become an introvert, or say, hey, this is going to end. And now when it does end, I'm going to be better and stronger and more prepared for tomorrow. And that's, I think, I joke around about like mentioning failure, but I failed 1,000 times and I'll fail 1,000 more. But now, having studied inspiration, studied motivation, consuming content like your show, each time I read those positive affirmations and things like that, I become stronger. And at first, you're just reading them, but eventually, you start to implement those teachings into your life, and then you don't always need to have a piece of paper in front of you to implement those teachings. Now it's second nature, it's habit, and the habit is, yeah, the challenge is there, and I welcome it because I think I'm going to be stronger because of it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is powerful, really. I mean, to really recognize that all bad times do end, and most of the time you're going to transform through that. If you do the work, though, that's the key. Is you have to do the work in order to transform your life. You have to be willing to recognize when you're in a little bit of a funk and either get the support, find the books, find the people to follow that can help to inspire you and guide you, and don't get lost in the process of doing things that aren't in your best vision. Don't spend your evening downing the booze and watching TV after TV after TV and just zoning out. Like, use this time to really grow.
And it's almost like compounding you do not want to compound the negative stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So like, hey, if I'm having a bad day, and I understand, I've had my share of drinks in my life, mm-hmm. but to use it to escape, well, then I'm compounding the problem. If I run away from something that needs to be addressed, now tomorrow, I could have addressed that at the end. I should have called Tammy and said, hey, let's straighten this out. Instead, I didn't call Tammy, and now the next day I worried all night long about what could have been handled yesterday. So putting things off and moving them to the side helps nobody.
No. And here's the thing is, we can't think like I woulda, shoulda, coulda. Like, here's the thing, like, accept that happened and you just restart. You reset and restart, like, right now.
Right. I think everything, like, what can I do? I'm a big believer in controlling the controllables. What can I do? What can I do right now? I cannot help. My mom and dad were great parents. They did their best job. They did the best job they could with me. Right? I can't, if they disciplined me in a way, or whatever happened before today in my life, if I was fired from a job, if I struck out writing a book, whatever it was, I can only control today, moving forward. And every time I talk about yesterday in this negative light, or somebody in this negative light from, yes, oh, well, this guy said this about me 4 years ago. Who cares? This does not help me in any way tomorrow and moving forward. And I'm trying to, whether it be consume, consuming positive and consuming positive messages and stuff. Or my friend Chris Wilberding has a statement. He'll say, mute the negative, right? And
Mhm.
the more I can mute the negative in my life, well, then I'm not. I don't. I wrote it one time in a book. I called it vampires and bloodsuckers. Right?
Mm.
There are these people in your life that are going. They're like a black cloud that hang over you. They want to latch on. They want to stick their fangs into you and suck the positivity and life out of you. You have to avoid the vampires and the bloodsuckers.
Yes, your mindset and your energy is priceless. And you cannot stay high vibe when you're hanging out with people that are like consumed with being like right all the time or toxic. It's just, it doesn't work. You cannot be going to where you want to go and then staying with the same people that are committed to gossip and negativity. It's just not it's not healthy for your mindset.
Right.
Right.
I
I,
like your I like your high vibe. So the question was, kindly asked me about some screenplays that we're working on.
yeah.
So one of the things as a storyteller, I believe for anybody that we talked about that's writing their story in some capacity, there's a lot of great ways to tell a story. I encourage you to turn your phone like this and tell a story for 30 seconds. Tell your story for a minute. Do a Facebook Live. Do a podcast. Go out and speak at the Rotary, the Chamber of Commerce, all those things. Get on the speaking circuit. Write a book. But sometimes I I believe a message is not best told those ways. It may be best told in film and screenplay. So some of the stories that came to us, one of our authors, Brian P. Swift. Brian P. Swift is an inspiring dude. Brian broke his neck playing high school football and is a quadriplegic. And he hunts, he fishes, he even has a motorcycle that bike club converted for him. He rides up where the sidecar is and rides around in the motorcycle.
Hmm.
Brian came to us, our publishing company, with the idea for a comic book about a superhero in a wheelchair. I thought, that's a great idea, Brian, but I think it could be better told on screen. We then created a team, wrote the screenplay, and we've been shopping it across the country and had some really interesting people connect with us. At the same time, we have other screenplays that we are developing that one of them is called Growing Up Gangster. It's about high school in the 90s. High school in the 80s and 90s. Sometimes people today, we we talk about these issues like bullying and suicide and things like that. Today we discuss that all these things are happening and we get into the details of them. But when they happened in the 80s and 90s, we didn't talk about them. It was just overdoses and things like that. It was on the fringe. So Growing Up Gangster is a story about high school in the 90s, but it's really dealing with those issues that we faced and bringing them to light. And so then we help other people. We just keep on telling stories, and that's what we do.
I think that that is really cool. And I didn't really realize that. Um, I guess I've never really thought about it, but that sometimes a screenplay or a movie wasn't ever a book to begin with.
Right. Some are not best told. And sometimes I try to write two at the same time, and it's completely different because I was having this conversation with my wife recently. And in a movie, you can just switch you can immediately see that I'm 7 years old when I'm on screen, if the little boy's 7 playing with his toys. In a book, you have to write that he's 7 years old and explain who that is and things like that. So it's two completely different things that may not work. Like some things are better told as a documentary, right? It's, well, why is it a movie? No, this should be a documentary. We have a gentleman who he was in one of my books. It was called Go Ask Your Dad, and he his mother was addicted to crack. His father was in jail. His brother was murdered in front of him, and he was involved in crimes that led him to be put away for life before the age of 21. And his story of the man he's changed into after 40 years in jail is a story that he and his family were able to get out of jail to us, and we're developing in a lot of ways. And it may be one that's better told in a documentary form than another story. So we really look into the art of the story and figure out. You might come to me with a unleash your amazing children's book. Yeah, we might decide, hey, let's figure out that maybe kids don't know that they each have a unique amazing in them, and we should, that your story may be better told as a children's book. Maybe it should be told both ways. And that's kind of the, I love the art of the story. One of my, I mentioned earlier that I want you to get on Twitter to work on telling your story. I would also like you to read a ton of books and educate yourself on what else is going on in the world. So I, I think the storytelling is an art, and you need to understand how all these different stories are being told.
Hmm. Interesting. I like that. So I don't actually do a lot of reading that is like story reading. I do reading for growth. I read self-help books,
Right.
but I could see how it could be really beneficial to also read more of novels and things when you're thinking about writing a book, so that you could be able to pull different storytelling capabilities, into your writing.
One of the first things that I think I realized I was missing, I went back and read Red Badge of Courage, Uncle Tom's Cabin, all these, Catcher in the Rye, these classics that, why did people love them so much? Why did they make such an impact? And if I want to tell a story that I want to impact other people, like Catcher in the Rye, very subtle book, but the impact it's had for generations is amazing. So, but yes, I am a consumer. I love self-help. That's, probably my, the place where I can't get enough of it. Give me anything that you can get. I want, but I better read some other books. And like, even watching, me and my wife lately, we watched, I think it was Terms of Endearment. Uh, we just, the proposal, and where she's always watching Pretty Woman, but it is they're all beautiful stories that needed, that it helped me by watching those stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so, so very much for sharing with us today. How do people get in touch with you?
I would love to talk to anybody that wants to check me out. And our groups are Motivation Champs. If you look us up anywhere online, it's Motivation Champs. We have groups where we help people share inspiration 24/7. We'd love you to come on there and share something that made you smile today, something positive, or just hang out, creep in the corner for 6 months. We don't mind. We'd love to have you on there. Maybe we can make you smile. But that's Motivation Champs, and anywhere you can direct message us or find us on the website. And if you want to talk about writing books, we'd love to go down that path with you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Dominick. I really appreciate all of your insight.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Have an amazing day.